Well, hello everyone and welcome to the Day 1 roundup of TCR UK, round 7, 8 and 9 here at Knockhill. Round 7 is complete, 8 and 9 tomorrow. Andy McEwan and myself, Anthony Jordan. Andy, it's certainly been an interesting day. Track limits, I think, is the biggest question mark.
Yeah, that was always a concern of mine, to be honest, but let that not detract from the fact we did have some brilliant racing in our opening TCR race of the weekend. Knockhill's just one of those places, it produces what I refer to as pressure cooker races. Not easy to pass here. You get big groups of cars sort of running absolute nose to tail, and then something happens, just sort of sparks it all into life, and we had plenty of those battles even in race 1, and I think tomorrow's 2 races the intensity is only going to climb and climb.
Yeah, you are right in saying that. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the race winner in that one, Carl Boardley. I mean, what a weekend he's had so far. Pole in qualifying, race win, lights to flag. I mean, what can you say about that?
A dominant performance, and he's making a habit of this now, actually. You know, his race victories, the 2 that he's had in a row, have both been quite similar, really, starting near the front of the grid and just sort of controlling the race. He's very, very good at doing that, although today disappeared up the road. 10 seconds or so the winning margin by the flag. I mean, that is pretty unheard of actually in TCR UK. So, you know, if he can keep that going, then he's clearly going to be a serious championship threat. He's moved right onto the tail now, Bruce Winfield. I think only a couple of points in it once the drop scores are calculated, and more than making up, I think, for the one that got away back at Croft.
Yeah, exactly the old point. I mean, Jack Constable as well in the Audis, second place for him. He didn't expect that. I don't even think we expected that one. Certainly a tough fight that they've had in the Audis, isn't it?
Yeah, a track that all of the Audi drivers told us wasn't going to suit them. Yeah. All of the non-Audi drivers said that the Audis were going to be really quick here, and I think actually the truth is somewhere in the middle. The new Gen 2 Audi is working well here at Knockhill, but I also think that the teams, particularly Rob Boston Racing, they're just wrapping their head now around what makes that car tick. They've got a setup on it that clearly is favouring both drivers. I think both Jack and Joe probably have quite a similar driving style as well. From what we can see externally watching them on the track, I think they're probably both looking for a similar setup, and they seem to have landed upon it. So yeah, great to see Jack getting that second place, more valuable points as well, and he's not out of this championship battle either.
No, exactly that. And of course, then we get, I think, to our first of our track limits victims. Joe Marshall, who we thought was going to get a podium in this one, was then scooped right back into the midfield, and then Adam Shepherd coming through. And Shepherd has been certainly a surprise, especially after what happened in qualifying, because qualifying, a lot of, I don't want to say mistakes, but he was pushing very hard, wasn't he?
He always has that car on edge. It's just the way that he likes to drive it. But yeah, here's at Knockhill, it's a circuit where that might make a car quick, but you've got to have that drivability. And they actually didn't make any adjustments. He told me on the grid they kept the setup identical from qualifying to the race. They were really confident that it would have good long-run performance, and that certainly seemed to be the case. If you think of a track that's going to suit Adam, though, it's a place like Knockhill. Full commitment. He loves driving here. I've actually raced with Adam on the sim here at Knockhill in the past. He is very quick. So yeah, not hugely surprised to see him do well, but I was glad to see that the moments he had in qualifying didn't knock his confidence in anyway.
Yeah, good recovery drive though for championship leader Bruce Winfield, who only just holds on to his championship lead going into tomorrow. That may change though with, of course, we've got 2 races. There are 2 more sets of championship points up for grabs, and with the dominance that we saw from Carl Boardley, yes, okay, he has the reverse grid that he's got to deal with for race 2, but there's so much pace there. Do we reckon Bruce Winfield might end this round second in the championship?
I think there's half a chance. Bruce knows, I'm sure, the importance of race 2. He's going to be starting a few places ahead of Carl Boardley, neither of them right at the front of the grid, but Bruce made good progress in race 1. All of the people starting immediately in front of him on the grid, he passed in race 1, so he knows he can do that, and I think he's got to try and take some points out of Carl Boardley in that second race, knowing that Carl is then going to have that big track position advantage over him again. The second fastest lap times from qualifying giving us the race 3 grid. Boardley will be at the front, and unfortunately Bruce is going to be buried in the midfield again. So race 2 is a crucial one. He's got to try and outscore Carl, build a bit of a buffer, and then perhaps go into those next few rounds. You know, you'll see a compensation weight shift after this weekend. You'd imagine Bruce might lose some weight, whereas Carl may gain some in his Cooper, and you know, that's really the way in which you win this championship. We saw it from Chris Smiley last year. It's not how well you do on your good days, it's how much you can salvage on the days where you or the car just aren't quite in the groove. Yeah,
exactly. It's certainly a mix-up with the field, but I think, you know, tomorrow's going to be an exciting day. There was drama in that race. We were bound to get to it. Brad Hutchinson and, of course, Darrell Wilson. I mean, what can you say about that? The battle itself was a brilliant one. It ended in tears, but I mean, what can you call on that?
I'm glad it's not my decision to make. Certainly, we had a quick chat to Brad on the way over here to the view here, which does indeed have a cracking view of a part of the circuit down to the hairpin, where that battle really sort of ignited, wasn't it? That's where the move was made initially. Darrell got past him, and Brad saw a chance to go back up the inside into turn one. I called it a low percentage move at the time. I stick with that. It was a legitimate move, for sure. I was absolutely entitled to go to the inside line. But you're then putting all of your faith in the fact that the car you're overtaking, the driver, has seen you coming. And I don't think Darrell had seen him coming. He turned into the corner and ultimately contact was made. So not a dirty bit of driving from Brad at all. He's not that kind of driver. Neither of them are. Wasn't intentional on either of their parts. But it's one of those where you put yourself in a position where whether you have an accident or not is no longer in your hands. It's in the hands of the other driver. And, you know, maybe there's a lesson to be learned there. Who knows?
Well, it is a tough one to make. And I'm certainly glad I wasn't the person making the decision on that one. But it was very interesting. I mean, right, let's brush on the track limits thing now, because we've talked about our first victim of that one, but there was so many. It was nearly half the grid that got a track limits warning in that race.
Yes. Okay. So
let's brush on it.
I should have probably prepared a script here. I think when it comes to talking about track limits, it's unfortunate. Knockhill is a track where you live life on the edge constantly. You're committing to corners which are completely blind. In a front-wheel drive car, particularly, you go over a crest like you do at turn one, like you do at the chicane, like you do at Clark's. The car goes light. It understeers towards the edge of the road. You've got to anticipate that absolutely inch perfectly long before you commit to the corner. Drivers are going to get it wrong when they're racing wheel to wheel. So it's unfortunate. It makes it very complicated getting to the end of the race and trying to figure out where people are. The one thing I hope is that whether we agree with the rule or not, it is A, being monitored and punished fairly and equally to everyone, and B, that the drivers learn to drive within those rules. We can argue all night long, as I'm sure many of them are, whether it's right or wrong. They are the rules, and they need to figure out how they can extract the maximum without just stepping slightly over the edge. Because I made the point a few times in the race today, it was those drivers who were willing to drive at 9/10ths who were then ultimately getting good results. Bruce Winfield, at no point did we see Bruce Winfield up on two wheels, sideways, really pushing, kept it between the white lines, wasn't the fastest on track, but ended up with good points in fourth. And I think that's definitely a lesson to be learned for some of those who did end up with a penalty.
100%, yeah, that will make it very interesting for tomorrow to see if they've learned any lessons from today. Last thing I want to touch up on, the reverse grid.
Yes.
Of course, now Matthew Wilson will be starting on pole position tomorrow. That's going to be a very interesting one. He'll have Chris Miley alongside, and, well, I think Callum Newsham has got a serious chance here to take a race win.
Fantastic drive from Callum today to come from the back of the grid after that engine change after Alton Park. I know he was really disappointed about that, but he put it behind him and put in a really classy drive. And now starting third on the grid, I think he's got a real chance. He overtook Chris Smiley on genuine pace. He'd already overtaken Matthew Wilson on genuine pace. That's all he needs to do again tomorrow, and he could just get that first victory in TCR UK. Be a great place for him to do it as well. I know that we have this joke about whether Knockhill or Croft is his home track, but this is a track that he's clearly got an affinity to. His dad won in a touring car here, 11 years ago now, and I know it would mean an awful lot to the family after the disastrous season that they've had so far, if he could pick up a nice bit of silverware. But there are other drivers who we know can make good progress through the order as well, so that second race could be a particularly exciting one. I mean, Chris Smiley, let's not gloss over him, starting front row, needs a good result. There's no two ways about it. So there's a lot at stake in that reverse grid race.
It seriously is, and as well, plenty of action coming up tomorrow for that one. So make sure you stay tuned with it. It's going to be a long stream. It's going to be an early start for a lot of the drivers, but make sure you stay tuned.
And some commentators as
well.
And
some commentators as well. All three of us, myself, Anthony Jordan, Andy McEwan, and Paul O'Neill, will be on commentary duty for that one. We will see you there for races 2 and 3 of the weekend, or rounds 8 and 9 of the championship. Make sure you stay with us.